The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Hello, everybody. This is Brian from Breaking Down Security. This week is part 2 of our discussion with Ronnie Watson, SecOps Geek on Twitter. Previously, we discussed a little bit about network monitoring, and this week we're going to talk about things like metrics, how you can use the information that you capture in terms of logs to understand your security posture, metrics that you may want to show your management on effectiveness and efficacy of your controls. We also talk a little bit about lateral movement, and finding malware and recapturing malware that might be in your environment using whole PCAP capture. I think it's a great discussion for those of you who are in network monitoring and love talking about all things network monitoring. This will hit home for you. And if you're new to the network monitoring, I suggest you go check out SecOps Geek's Twitter feed. He has a lot of excellent content there. And also check out Wazuh. It's free. It's the fork, as we talk about later on. It's a fork of ossec. It's free, and they only charge for things like technical support, which is sometimes all you need. If you're in an organization, you just may need to be able to ask somebody a question. If you can get some support that way, all the better. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. We're going to start talking about some metrics. I have a little story that I try to set up the scenario with, but hope you have a great week. And I'd like, before we go, I'd like to thank Point 3 Security for allowing us to sponsor them for their Women's CTF this year. That was excellent discussion. I also want to thank Lauren at Little Lost for being the InfoSec Education Foundation's ambassador. She gave a great 15-minute discussion on volunteer opportunities and how to expand your network and ways that you can help organizations with technical support. If let's say you're a nonprofit or something, or you're a local nonprofit, they always need technical support or IT help or security help, and sometimes they store information that might need to be secured, and they don't necessarily know that they need to do that. So volunteer opportunities are out there, even in the times of the pandemic here, and a lot of those organizations would love to have that kind of help, and looks good on resumes too to be able to donate time and effort. And sometimes you can get CPEs for coaching and mentoring and education in that respect. So if you're a CISP or somebody looking for opportunities to gain CPEs, other than this podcast, obviously, but if you're looking for CPEs, it's definitely a good way of donating your time and effort to help secure organizations. So anyway, all right, back to the show. Have a great week. The biggest thing about being a network monitor or whatever, at least in the way I was thinking, was being able to show your manager how secure you are versus where you were, patching levels of systems. I don't know if the beats also have like patching levels or kernel levels or what have you. Just as an example, last week we had several vulnerabilities, including ones like Linux kernel vulnerabilities. We had a sudo vulnerability where certain things were. There was I think it was a heap overflow in sudo, and it was compounded. Right. Yeah, it was compounded by having, I believe, SendMail was using some kind of kludgy kind of fix to get around running as root, and it dealt with sudo, and that actually caused more issues. If the idea is monitoring the network, is there? You did mention that there are dashboards, but if I was a manager, I'd be like, how secure are we? And you'd be like, what would be the answer to somebody asking, what kind of metrics should we gather? Because you did this under your old IT director. What's the new IT or the new security director looking for in terms of how successful this is?
At this moment, he hasn't really given any of his opinions at this moment. It's still just taken under my umbrella, and
Mm-hmm.
all of the stuff that we use, like if we want to determine whether it's any vulnerabilities or anything like that, we have another system that determines those things because we push out updates regularly, to systems, and we monitor all what type of updates that will need to go out. But
Okay.
I haven't delved into this one to figure out for the Elastic Stack, but Wazuh, it do have like vulnerability detection and integrity MITRE and PCI compliance capabilities that Elastic Stack just don't have. And
Hmm.
that's the reasons why I was using it, which that platform is still using Elasticsearch, Kibana, the old good faithful ELK stack. So it's still using those platforms. But for us, we just use another system that I built from the ground up, desktops, manage engine desktop central and monitor all of our and do updates to
Okay.
those.
Yeah, cool. All right. Yeah. When you were given that training, I didn't know if you were an actual employee of Waza or what. Um, I was doing some research on that, and the ossec apparently became mature enough that they didn't feel like it was. They felt like it was feature complete, and other people thought differently, and forked off ossec to this
Mm.
Waza thing. The only difference is they're giving instead of trying to charge people for it like Elasticsearch is trying to do now, they have a subscription model. So if you have technical support issues or logging issues, or your configuration may be a little hosed up, you can actually pay them to do various things for you, including like making dashboards or efficacy.
Right.
Uh, yeah. So you're using this for network forensics mostly, some file integrity monitoring. So do you do any malware analysis? If you see, vulnerable binaries on the network, you're pulling the full packet, right? So you'd be able
Yes.
to take that and recreate the malware from scratch. This is some in Mr. Betcher's bailiwick here, but are you actually doing any analysis with the logs and the analysis, like putting it in a sandbox or doing that kind of stuff?
Not at this moment. Only thing I'm probably doing is threat intel or OSINT, just gathering
Mm-hmm.
information, discovery. I basically want to be in the know and know what is going on with it and do my own analysis. And if I do get any type of samples, it may be from other systems, which I haven't gotten any from that. It'll probably be through our email filters, and I'll grab that document or something like that, upload it to any run, let it run, and see what type of hits I would get on it once it runs in that sandbox. But no, I have not done any malware analysis with the system at all. Most of the stuff is just showing a lot of DNS traffic going through our filters and showing a lot of peer-to-peer communication. And thankfully, we haven't been hit with any malware or any ransomware. Knock on wood, keep on going. And, I'm just thankful at that moment, but that's something I'm trying to learn at this moment. Since you have spoken about that, I was trying to go through some workshops with some online resources for free and try to learn reverse engineering with malware with like a platform called Remnux or
Mm-hmm.
Lenny or something like that. But just trying to discover myself. But no, not at this moment. Any malware I've broken down or found in our network. Pretty much, we keep it kind of tight, but you never know. It's always that one person or one IOC that just mess everything up.
Yeah, that's the safe option, though. You'll know you become a security researcher because North Korea will target you with like malware samples. You won't even have to ask or find malware samples. They just send you stuff that you can try. So that happened a couple of weeks ago, where people are in the infosec community were getting hey, click on this link and open this file, and they were like, oh yeah, okay, cool, and they got infected. So we're actually hoping to have somebody who was live tweeting about it. I think Rich in Seattle's Twitter handle. Still talking to him about getting him on once all this settles down to talk about the to talk about that. So we talked about reverse engineering binaries, but there's indicators of compromise, right? And lateral movement in an organization. And how do you keep track of those? What kind of, when you get alerts, are you looking for specific things like, successful logons, unsuccessful logons? Why is that person logging in at 3 a.m? He probably shouldn't be logging in from, Indonesia or what have you. Do you ever have to, are you looking for those kinds of those kinds of metrics or anything like that? Why is this person working on a weekend, or a ton of unsuccessful logins or SMB connections to a server that doesn't have a share on it? Are you looking for those kinds of things?
Yes, I am. Anytime I do look at something that's going on with our tap and everything, ingesting data, I am just mostly looking at the source IPs, because the destination IPs is going to be coming into the network. But most of the stuff I'm looking at the source and like where it's coming from. And then from that point, I drill down on that system and see what is going on with that PCAP file. And I haven't got my Elastic SIEM to that point that my security onion's on, which is the same platform with that stack. But when I get into that portion, it's going to be with the EDR portion, and I can get a little bit more detail of packets and applications on what specific processes are running and what destination and source IP addresses are tied to that specific application, what type of hash values that will be associated with that application. And I could be doing more threat intel or OSINT information, looking online, going to virus total, typing in hashes, typing in IP addresses at who is, finding out what internet provider they are, or find out any domain names that's associated with it, and try to go down that path to trying to do more content discovery on those specific packets that I run into that kind of look suspicious to me. But most of the stuff is just going to be looking for source IP addresses, like where it's coming from and where it's going to as well. But in the security on your portion, I will take apart the PCAP file to look at every specific thing which you can download, and probably use Wireshark or use this system and just look at it in a more detailed way, which that's something that is different in Elastic because it gives you the process tree, give you the timeline on the packet, the data, the application, etc.
So Ronnie, you've taken that network to a better place. You now have monitoring, you now have eyes on it, right? And that's a really good thing to have someone of your capabilities actually looking at it. Where was the security of that network before you really got involved?
The security of it was really good because we have alerts going across our network all the time. We have SNMP traps going on. We have alerts and everything when SD-WAN firewall blocks the IPS intrusion prevention. I try to find out what is going on. So we had a lot of alert going on, but nothing to the point that it was packet level discovery. We didn't have that portion where I'm looking at my switch and I'm seeing the data that's traversing from it. I'm looking at everything. We just basically had whether IPS block or a switch went down, just basic normal IT alerts. But since I've been there, I kind of stepped it up a notch with the security part and implemented more security options and alert and monitoring. Took it up from 5 all the way up to 8.
Nice. Yeah, that's. You're making very impactful changes to your organization. So it sounds like this was real smooth sailing. You didn't have any interruptions. Nobody had any issues with this. Obviously you're adding software to people's machines. Did they Was there any resistance? I mean, what did if there was resistance, what did that look like? Or was everybody pretty much on board? I don't know what the culture is like at your organization. So, I mean, what did it look like?
Well, the culture is pretty cool. And the most of the part, we were just trying to look at our core devices because everybody is on one lane and everybody's going to come back to one source location. So as long as I'm monitoring that one source location that all of our corporate traffic going to come through, that's going to be the endpoint that I'm going to want to monitor the most and look at every aspect that I can. And everything else is going to go out of our public side. But yeah, it's going to be, they were pretty acceptable to it. I didn't have to install software on everybody's computer, which I do have other software installed for patching and stuff like that, but not with that specific thing because it's more with Elastic that I have to go to every last workstation and run these commands and configure it to monitor every last specific system, which we already got DNS filtering for mobile devices, mobile device management. So it's pretty much secure and locked down in that perspective. But, you know, the manager was like, monitor the core devices, our servers, you know, that's where the heart of everything that we got going on, our file servers and everything else that we use. So we'll want to get those agents on there, monitor their traffic, see what type of DNS questions come across our core switches or routers or something, which we don't have routers. I mean, core switches and firewalls, monitor that because everybody's going to hit that sooner or later before they get out. So might as well tap it at the endpoint instead of at the source instead of going to the endpoint because they're going to come back there regardless.
Right.
So they didn't have really any no resistance on that because it was mostly for our critical devices.
Okay. So something I was just thinking about here. Your traffic is for the most part, you're collecting most of that in terms of packets and PCAPs and what have you. Have you ever come up against any SSL issues or actually are you, you know, if you're encrypting your HTTPS traffic, if you had malware going over HTTPS, how does that work with the PCAPs? Are you not able to just view those and you discount them? Or is there a way to intercept those and crack the SSL? I know a lot of big financial organizations do SSL interceptions. How are you handling, handling that without, just looking at source and IP, destination IPs, you're not actually getting to see what's inside those packets, right?
Yes, and that's one thing I have to be really cautious with because I was using another product that was doing the DNS filtering and it was intercepting SSL traffic, but it dropped a lot of latency on my network because it has to go through with our certificate that is installed on the devices to man in the middle of those connections and decrypt whatever's going through. But I had to turn it off because it was causing a real latency with our network. And when I was using our SIEM technology, the one I'm trying to get up to that point with Elastic, I'm trying to get to the point that I can get to where my security onion is, just full-blown monitoring everything, SSL traffic, burst traffic, the whole 9 yards. And I'm trying to get that to it so that it can monitor those type of events. And I have two type of source of discovery type of SIEMs where I'm looking at different type of events. But yes, that SSL traffic, I can't see it, but I don't believe I could be able to decrypt it. And when I was using that other platform like Cisco Umbrella, you can turn that on. But once you turn that on, websites are not going to load the way they're supposed to load. If you don't allow those, and it causes a lot of issues. So that's one thing that I can't really, focus on. And I know that's a big part because malware these days, they are fully encrypting communications back and forth, especially ransomware, emotet, all the, stuff is going through encryption. And, that's one thing that you won't want to have a discovery on with your network. And,
right.
That's one thing I'm kind of falling short with is the SSL decryption portion. I don't have a lot of experience in that at all. Not at all.
Yeah. No, that's okay. So one of the other things, I mean, it only seems like it's getting harder for network people to actually monitor networks. 3-4 months ago, I'd heard about DNS over HTTPS, which is going to allow you to bypass maybe even your company's DNS servers. Being able to go to sites that potentially were blocked by DNS or whatever. Do you have you come up against this is this a thing yet for your organization? Are you how are you worried about that? Is that, I mean, that's a lack of DNS information or visibility for your organization, or is that something you're worried about from a security standpoint?
That is a concern because modern browsers, one of the updated browsers like Firefox, it has that built in now to it, DNS over TLS. And that's on by default where you're using Cloudflare or any specific one you want to use. But for most of the other ones like Edge or Chrome browser, I don't think they have any of those features enabled. And as long as my users are not using Firefox like I'm using, then I don't have to worry about all that DNS over TLS encrypted communications. But that is an issue. And I just haven't crossed that bridge yet with the DNS portion. And I know they have DNSSEC as well for your DNS servers for basically, signing your requests and everything like that. So, but yeah, that has not came up at all.
Yeah, you're working in a very hostile industry, being medical. The medical
Right.
industry is not known for its security in many. It's just interesting that we when I had you come on, one of the things that I wanted to find out was how people are coping with those kinds of technologies and dealing with it from a network and forensics point of view. So it's good to hear that those things are on your radar and that you're trying to figure out ways to not get around them, but to be able to detect those items. So we got about, according to my egg timer, we got about another 7 minutes here. Mr. Betcher, did you have any other comments, questions, or concerns?
No questions. I do have a comment though. For those who want an update on the Elasticsearch license, Security Onion particularly says, we're currently waiting for Elastic to finalize their changes to the Elastic license. We'll provide more information when we have it. So there's an update there for Security Onion people. My expectation is that it won't affect those who just download Security Onion and use it because Security Onion itself is open source as well.
Right. Well, I also had heard that because of the negative backlash, they were actually looking at maybe having a dual license kind of deal, or keeping the freer version, quote unquote. And Amazon, I had heard, had also forked their own version of Elastic that they were going to use. So I'm almost assuming that there's going to be, because Wazuh is a fork of ossec because nobody was doing anything with that anymore. So Amazon will have their own implementation of Elasticsearch for their own environments. I guess that's a good question, Ronnie. Where are you running this? Do you have cloud-based items as well, or is all of your log monitoring done in a data center? Do you still have a traditional data center?
Yeah, we still have a on-prem data center, well, server room data center, as you want to call it, and I do have a dedicated VM that I use for that specific purpose, and we have our production servers as well. So all of this is running on-prem, local, built from scratch via the repositories, from the step-by-step configuration guides that either I built or following from the vendor itself. But nothing with cloud-based, because some of the cloud-based, the connections can be slow when you're going through the dashboards. But and then, you just got to pay for, you get what you pay for. But, this is all hosted locally and internally.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, you taught that class for the group there. How well did it go? I mean, how many people showed up? Are you planning on giving that training anywhere else?
It was pretty much, I think, 15 or more people. I didn't realize that I had echoing going on in my video where I had my laptop video going along with my live stream. But after I got that squared away, it was really good. Going through, just gave everybody the requirements and built everything off of my VMware workstation with Ubuntu 20.04, or you could use 18.04. Walk through the step-by-step guides. And one of the guys mentioned, said, man, if I knew this was going to be a workshop, I would have came ready to prepare, because halfway through the thing, he didn't realize that this was actually a workshop. He just thought it was a speaker again, just talking about it, until he realized that, everything I was doing, I was going through building it live right then and there on the stream, showing them configurations I was doing, the changes I was making to the .yaml files, putting in IP addresses, updating the system, doing the security portion, because you're going to have security warnings after you install it, getting users set up to the point where they can log in, have a SSL certificate that's going to be self-signed certificate, and be able to log in and see some type of data happen in the type of logs that they can look at via the discovery. I just didn't have the original VM where my geographical data was all over the place. But yeah, it went good. Loved it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'd asked some people in my in our BrakeSec Slack for the podcast, asking if they'd had any experience with Wazuh for that, and one of the gentlemen had said it's a simpler setup using Wazuh, combining ELK plus ossec and some custom rules. He says Wazuh serves the same audience as any other SIM tool geared towards SOC teams, which is great. Metrics are a team thing rather than a tool thing. The tools are merely enablers for teams to focus on what they need to focus on. It has all the classic things to look for in compliance, odd man out, violations, etc. Are you using it for compliance frameworks or guidelines like HIPAA or meaningful use or anything like that?
I could use it for that if I wanted to, and I could push out those agents via our software deployment, or I could use like a group policy or something like that. And it's more easier to deploy the agents with that one because it's a single exe file that you could download and run on the machines versus the Elastic you build directly. And you can monitor HIPAA, you can do PCI compliance, and it would just give you certain levels or information, whether you need more stronger passwords or you need to make certain specific changes to it. So yeah, it's very detailed. That's why I use it in combination with the other, because I get certain data off of the systems that I wouldn't get from the other ones when I use that platform.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay. Very cool. All right. Well, I don't think I have any other thoughts or questions or anything. Mr. Betcher, how about you?
Nope.
Cool. All right. So, Ronnie, we mentioned it at the beginning of the show, your Twitter handle. How would people find you if they wanted to talk more about this?
It could be on my, they could look me up on Twitter at SecOpsGeek. I don't know if you have that in the chat or something like that where they can reach that in. That'd be the best place that they can reach me. Send me a DM or send me a reply or follow. And I check that very frequently, like 30 to 40 times a day, so that'd be the best place if anybody had anything they wanted to ask me or, had any recommendation, because I do have a YouTube channel as well. And that is, let me see if I can post that here as well.
Yeah, put it in the show notes. Put it in the show notes and we'll make sure we get it.
Let me go ahead and get my channel right quick and
right on.
And get that going for you.
Okay.
Let's see. Got that. And my channel also, it just has the full guides that I was using for that as well, how I built it, going through the walkthroughs on my videos for the Elastic Stack build. And let me see, do I have WT? Let me see, GitHub /Watsoninfosec, and I'm gonna put my GitHub there as well.
Okay.
That's where all of my how-to guides.
So there's a link in the show notes to that and to the how-to guides on his GitHub. And apologize, my cat's telling me that my door is shut to my office. So yeah, y'all can mark that off your bingo cards that he got it. So cool. All right. Any chance that you'd be open to giving that training again if there was a conference or something that was looking for a 2 or 3 hour workshop? I mean, I don't know how long the training was for, but would you be willing to give that out again if you
Sure. I mean, anybody that wanted to learn exactly what I went through, my heartaches and trying to build it and set it up, I would love to do that presentation again if anybody asks me to or show it anywhere. The one thing about it is I'm not going to withhold any information. Whatever I learn, anybody else can learn. I'm not that type of person. I just want to learn from my experience and pay it forward. That's how they did me. I'm just trying to give back to the security community what I've taken and gained in my knowledge. So, yes, I'll do that anytime anybody want to ask me.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely check Ronnie's YouTube channel out as well as his GitHub for some how-tos, and hopefully he'll join us on our Slack if I send him an invite, and he can hang out in the SIM and logging channel. I'll send you an invite.
Yeah.
We used to have a regular meeting with the SIM and logging team where people could get in and talk about their various issues with, not just ELK stacks, but also the Splunk and, if they've got, log monitoring and such. So I'm really hoping we can get that started back up in the near future. But yeah, we've got several channels that would probably be of interest to all kinds of folks doing network monitoring and logging and, just blue team in general. So cool. Okay. Mr. Boettcher, we've talked a lot about configuration of systems and logging this day, which is right in your bailiwick. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with LogMD.
Well, with LogMD, we're adding some new stuff for the static analysis tool, which would be really cool. That's released in the Pro version. And also we have the dynamic analysis tool, PE-Civ, that's built into it. So yeah, we've got those features now with the new version coming out and just working on that. You can check that out at log-md.com.
Right. And you have a free version of LogMD, which doesn't do the analysis bits, obviously. So, but it's still, the free version is still quite useful for logging and monitoring and helping out with those kinds of things.
Yeah, definitely. And it helps you determine which logs are important on a Windows environment. So yeah, check that out.
Very cool. Okay. Right on. And how would people find you on Twitter there, Mr. Boettcher?
At Boettcherpwned, my last name, BOETTCHERPWNED. And
you actually view your Twitter from time to time?
From time to time, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Understood. It's kind of a hot mess nowadays, especially with all the stonks and whatever's going on. I thought that was actually more annoying than a lot of political discussion that was going on the last few months. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. BrakeSec's got a Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at BrakeSec, BRAKESEC. You can follow me personally at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. As I mentioned earlier, Miss Berlin wasn't able to make it tonight, had some family issues, so we let her take care of those. You can find her on Twitter at InfoSister, INFOSYSTIR. She is also on and creator of the nonprofit Hackers Health. So they're dedicated to helping and gaining awareness of mental health issues in the hacker community. When things were going on in the meat space, they were doing workshops and such at conferences. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do something again this year. And once we start getting back to whatever the new normal is, but you can check them out at Hackers Health as well. So We have a Slack, very active Slack, a lot of things going on in there. Book club will be starting up, I think, again in about the next month. I think it's an incident response book, if memory serves. So I'll have to get with my moderators and figure that out. But like I said, we have moderators. We have a social contract. We expect mostly professional behavior at all times. Treat it as if you were at work when you were talking on it, I think is probably a good rule of thumb. And if you're interested in checking that out, we do invites only to cut down on the amount of bots. You can email us at bds.podcast@gmail.com and ask for an invite, or hit us up on the Twitter at BrakeSec. So just did the taxes for the nonprofit this year. Thought that was really great. We don't owe any taxes to Uncle Sam, which is awesome. We're also working on by the time this goes to show, we will have sponsored at a meetup or a CTF that is being ran by Point3.net Security, doing a women's CTF, a global thing where they've got hundreds of people getting together and doing, a CTF online. So that was one of the things that our nonprofit, the InfoSec Education Foundation, was working on for educational opportunities and to, help spread awareness of security. So, we're helping to sponsor that this year. If you're interested in checking that out, go to point3.net. I think is the name of the handle there. And you can go check that out. I think it starts February the 11th, which this has gone out on the 6th and the 13th. So I will mention it at the beginning of the show as well. Got a store. If you want to get masks and stickers and t-shirts or something like that, you can go to brakesec.com/store. Check out our TPub site. You can get a logo with BrakeSec on it. You can also get some stickers if you're fiending for some stickers there. You can check that out. And thank you to our Patreon supporters for all of their help with hosting fees, Zoom fees, domain registration fees, and just helping us out with the tip jar, time and effort, putting out a podcast every week, and building community. That takes time, takes effort. And it's good to see the rewards coming from that. And, indirectly, our Patreons are also helping to support the IEF's goals of spreading awareness and education to the greater InfoSec community. So big thanks to all of the Patreon supporters who helped make that happen. All right, Mr. Butcher, anything else before we go?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Ronnie, thank you so much for coming on. I've learned a lot about how ELK Stack works. And if you have any other, content you'd like to come back on with in the near future, let me know. It's always an automatic yes for any of our speakers. We always want you to come back. We always want you to share what you know and learn about. Maybe if, when you get your metrics stood up and you're showing all, what the old looks like versus the new, and it's like, yeah, we're doing awesome or something. I'd love to have you come back and talk about that.
Hey, no problem. And thank you so much. I hope I explained everything adequately, man, to, y'all understand. I'm still learning this stuff and things are changing, but I definitely appreciate you even giving me the time of day just to, do this, man. It's a blessing. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
We appreciate you taking the time to come and teach us, because I didn't even know Wazuh existed. So, I mean, there's a lot there that I didn't know about, and I'm sure we've just scratched the surface, and there's a lot more to come. So I do appreciate your time. So
no problem. Thank you.
Right on. That was it for Breaking Down Security this week. Take care of yourselves. Be nice to one another. And look after one another and try to drive carefully if you're in the snow this year, and take care of yourself, because you're the only you have. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.